The Tesla Model 3 has been around for over 6 years and is starting to feel a bit outdated. There was an upgrade in 2020, but that was just a pretty mild one. This new Model 3 is a much more significant leap forward. It's got a redesigned front end and considerable technological changes under the hood. But is it enough to make the Tesla Model 3 fresh again? Before we answer that question though, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The major change on the outside is the front, which is slicker and somewhat reminiscent of the prototype designs of the Roadster. These are now matrix LED headlights, although the 2021 cars introduced this technology. The rear lights have also been updated, but that's not such an obvious change. One thing you might have spotted missing as we take a look around is the little discs associated with ultrasonic sensors, because this car doesn't have any. Instead, all sensor jobs are performed by the cameras. There were some rumours that this car would arrive with hardware version 4, but this is actually more like version 3.5, so it doesn't have the high resolution radar which is going to make a return to add to the capabilities of full self-driving. So far, only long range and rear wheel drive Model 3s have been released in Highland form. We'll have to wait for the performance version. Although the colour options look the same, the red and grey are new. White is the default with blue and black £1,300 options. The new ultra red and stealth grey cost £2,000. This car is ultra red, which looks amazing, but there's also a dark cherry paint of choice for cars coming out of Germany, which looks even better. This car was made in China, however. The other external option is upgrading from these 18-inch Photon wheels to 19-inch Nova wheels, which cost £1,500. You also lose about 30 miles of range, so these 18-inch wheels are a solid choice, and they look much better than the previous 18-inch option. A lot of people take the aerodynamic covers off the previous 18-inch wheels, but we don't think they're going to be quite so willing to do that with these. So those are the exterior changes, but the interior's changed a bit too, and the technology. So let's take a look inside. You'll notice that I've actually been able to just walk into this car because I've already paired my smartphone with the key card. Otherwise, you'd have to use a key card on the A-pillar to get the car open. There are actually only 2 different trim options with this car. There is the black one, and for £1,100 you get this white option. A nice thing is neither of them have that rather appalling wood veneer on the dashboard anymore. You get this, with the white one, you get this kind of grey effect on the top here. Probably the biggest aesthetic difference in the interior is the fact you have this LED lighting trim, and you can change the colour of it. You can go pink, you can go green, you can go yellow, any colour you fancy. I kind of like it at a similar colour to the exterior of the car though. The glass also means that this car is allegedly 30% quieter than the previous version. These seats are pretty comfortable. I've done quite a few miles in a Tesla Model 3, and on long journeys they work really well. The seat adjustments are electronic on the side of the seats here. The only difference on the passenger side is you don't have that disc for altering lumbar support. So when you adjust these seat controls, you can actually save the settings to be associated with your phone and key card. That means that each individual driver can have their own memory function and just hit a button to get their seats exactly the position they like. So as with previous Model 3s, everything's relying on a 15.4-inch central LCD panel, but you'll also notice that something else is missing, not just things like the dashboard display. Yes, there are no indicators or any other kinds of stalks behind the steering wheel, but we'll get to talk about that when we move to the control section of this video. So this central console has been neatened up as well. You've got the same dual phone chargers at the front here, and then there's this cubby underneath here. This cubby, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a 12-volt power adapter in there, but you can plug in anything that uses that conventional car power adapter or a cigarette lighter. However, a big change is that the cup holders are now underneath the door, which neatens them up and makes the central console look tidier when you don't have cups there. This is pretty normal. As before, you have this large cubby, although it doesn't appear to have, in previous cars you had a kind of thing that went in there. And there's a very hidden USB-C port there. As before, the glove compartment, you can either open it with the LCD or you can do this. Open glove compartment, and it opened the charge port. Now we'll try again. Open glove box. Yeah, there we go, that worked that time. So it's not glove compartment. You can see it's a reasonably sized one, a bit shallow, but you know, enough for maybe gloves for the whole family. This long range car has a 17 speaker sound system with 2 subwoofers, but if you go for the mere rear wheel drive version, you only get 9 speakers and a single subwoofer. The amount of space in the back is the same as ever with the Model 3. There's a decent amount of headroom and a decent amount of knee room. So if you're over 6 foot, you'll still be quite comfortable here, and that's accentuated by this panoramic sunroof, which doesn't open, but gives you loads of light. This middle seat is reasonable enough for a short journey. I probably wouldn't want to be an adult in here for a couple of hours of driving. Now, it looks like it doesn't actually have an armrest anymore, but they've changed the design of it, so it's now built in with the headrest as well. So you move this down and you've got a couple of cup holders, quite a comfortable little armrest there if you've only got 2 passengers in the rear. The big change is you now have this 8-inch LCD panel in the back for rear passengers to use. So you've got the air conditioning, you can use the typical Tesla system to redirect the air for the 2 different people. You can also turn on finally, and at long last, turn on the 2 outer rear heated seats. You've got control over music, but you can also watch video in the back here, which would be great. You'll probably need to supply your kids with sick bags though, but you can watch Netflix, YouTube, there's some tutorials if you want your kids to get to know your Tesla, Disney Plus, and of course Twitch. The central section also has a couple of USB-C ports for your kids to plug in their devices. You've also got this ability for the person at the back seated behind the passenger seat to actually move the seat in front of them really far forward and back. This is presumably so that if they really want to have lots of space, they can have that. The 2 outer seats also have ISOFIX points to add child car seats. You've also got these seat back pockets for your kids to keep those sick bags, or their copy of the Spaceballs annual, or whatever it is kids read these days. One of the most annoying things, for me at least, about the Model 3 is it's not a hatchback. You do get this powered boot release, but there's no kick version of it. This is quite a decent capacity as well. On its own, this is a decent 425 litres, but you've got quite a sizable amount of space underneath the boot floor, which brings the total up to 594 litres. That's about twice what you get in a normal family hatchback. And you can, of course, drop these rear seats down. And this is the 60% side and the 40% side. Now this capacity, which is quite a nice flat space as well, is 1,140 litres, which again is about as much as a regular family hatchback, which makes it even more of a shame that this isn't a hatchback. We're also not sure about these quite sharp overhangs. I could see myself really knocking myself out with these. You also get an 80 litre frunk here, which is pretty sizable. You could put an overnight bag in here, you could put a small child in here, then you'd probably get arrested. You guys probably think I'm always putting small children in my frunks, but honestly I'm not, Your Honour. You can also buy a towing hook for this car for 1,300 quid, and that enables you to tow up to 1,000 kilograms with this car, or alternatively you could put a bike rack on the back as well. So there's quite a few exterior design changes and interior technology changes, but the range is also being improved as well. The rear-wheel drive car gets a significant 344 miles of WLTP range with the 18-inch wheels and 318 miles with the 19-inch wheels. That car also has an LFP battery, which means you can charge it to 100% more frequently than NMC-based cars like the long range. The long range car with its 84.6 kilowatt hour battery has up to 421 miles of WLTP range, which is pretty amazing. That's with the 18-inch wheels. If you go for the 19-inch wheels, you've still got a considerable 390 miles of WLTP range. As with all Model 3s, this is a CCS charging port, and that pretty class-leading range can also take advantage of Tesla's supercharger network to back it up, which now includes V4 units. However, no Tesla can actually hit 350 kilowatts yet. The long-range version gets up to 250 kilowatts, and the rear-wheel drive standard range version is only 170 kilowatts. However, you can get to 80% in maybe 20 to 30 minutes. The idea of picking up close to 300 miles in half an hour is pretty incredible. That's enough just to have a burger and a shake. The AC port is 11 kilowatts, but on a regular 7 kilowatt home wall box, you can expect to take about 11 hours to charge the long range from empty. During testing, I managed to get about 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. So you are going to get 260 to 270 miles of real range out of this long range car. So let's get back to probably the most controversial and dubious aspect of this car, which is the choice of bringing this car in line with the Model S Plaid and not actually having any stalks on the steering wheel and making you do everything with these buttons on the steering wheel. And the most controversial bit of that controversy is the fact that these are the indicators now, these two buttons. This makes things like indicating when you're halfway through a turn a lot more problematic, because the indicator's not exactly where you expect it. You have to look at the steering wheel to work out where the buttons are before you can touch them, which is potentially a bit dangerous actually. Other things that require buttons are the lights. If you press that one, you can then use this wheel here to change the lights up and down and turn on auto beams. If you haven't pressed any of the buttons, this wheel will operate the volume and skip tracks left and right. It has other functions as well. If you need to flash the lights, you also need to press this button on the steering wheel. If you press this one here, which turns on the windscreen wipers, you then can also use this button on the other side to change the speed and turn on auto wipers. You've also got a button for the cameras, and then this is for voice control. This one here works in tandem with this one for the adaptive cruise control. So you left and right to vary the distance to the car in front, up and down to vary speed. Fortunately, there is no yoke option as there is with the Tesla Model S, but this lack of indicator stalks could be a major deal breaker for some people with this car. You'll probably be alright if you're used to driving BMWs, but for the rest of us, there's a safety issue there. Starting the car still requires a press of the brake pedal. You'll notice that on the right hand side of the LCD, you've got this control here, which chooses drive, reverse, and then there's at the top going back to park. So even more is operated via this central LCD panel. You'll notice the speed is up there on the right hand side, and then you have this space which actually, when you're driving, it shows you the image of all the different vehicles around you. And then along the bottom, this shows you controls over the audio, and then there's a trip controller, and then there's tyre pressure as well. The main part of the screen is dominated by this map display. It's a pretty good sat nav. It's got things like the ability to, if you navigate to a Tesla supercharger and some other chargers as well, it will actually precondition the battery for you automatically. You'll notice that there is air conditioning available here, and this is, has Tesla's ability. You can, if you turn it on, you can actually have use this to redirect the air around the car. All different functions, fairly logical, but frankly not that easy to use when you're driving. You can drag icons along here. You can see I've got the heated steering wheel and the heated seats, and if there's a passenger, there'll be one over here for the passenger as well, and they will also get a secondary air conditioning controls as well, so they can control that. You can add things, so this is Spotify. You can drag different icons. If I drag, I don't know, I can drag the theatre mode. If I hold on to it, a bit like you can just move that down like that and put it on the bottom here. You'll notice that theatre mode, the very popular feature with Teslas, got Netflix, Disney Plus, YouTube, Twitch rather, not Twitter, it doesn't even exist anymore, X. And then you've got the ability to watch tutorials there. Then there's the arcade mode, which gives you lots of different games that you can use the car's controls to play. If you press this button on the right, you get to what is a really excellent menu system. Tesla's probably got one of the best in the business. You can change the controls, you can change how the pedals and steering work. You can choose between sport and comfort mode, for example, for the steering, charging controls, how the autopilot works. So this one actually has FSD, so it has a few extra functions. We'll talk about that a bit later. Locking functions, lights, there's the control for changing that. Ambient lighting I talked about, puddle lights, change the way this display is shown, trip meter, navigation, settings for that, safety modes, service, you can actually automatically book in your service here, and then of course software updates, because this car has over-the-air updates, which is another famous feature of Tesla. They will sometimes come every week. Naturally, this car is connected. You will need to log into your home Wi-Fi or pair a smartphone to download those software updates. But for $9.99 a month, you get live traffic, you can stream audio, you can stream video to this car. And that's actually pretty cheap when you consider what other manufacturers will charge you for individual services. Within fair use, there's no real limit on the amount of data, so you can watch as much Netflix as you want. This is the Model 3 Long Range, a dual motor car with 394 horsepower. It can hit 60 miles an hour in 4.2 seconds. If that's not enough, there's an acceleration boost option, which makes it a half second faster. The single motor rear wheel drive car takes a still quick 5.8 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour. Both cars have a top speed of 125 miles an hour. Although Tesla Model 3s and Ys don't have a great reputation for ride quality, I found this car is much better than the Tesla Model 3 Performance from 2020, which is my regular driver. This car's on 18-inch wheels though, compared to the Performance's 20-inch rims. This car obviously doesn't feel quite as quick as a Performance. In fact, the acceleration doesn't come in as immediately as a Performance, but it's still fast enough to humiliate most other cars on the road. Up to the legal speed limit, of course, which on this road is 20 miles per hour. Acceleration is still smooth and effortless, and that's aligned with precise and dependable steering. Around town, on rain roads and on motorways, the Model 3 feels completely in its element. There are a few better handling EVs, but the Model 3 is certainly a contender for driver engagement. After all, while the Highland is about 100 kilograms heavier than the previous Model 3, it's still only 1,828 kilograms, which is pretty light by EV standards. Of course, those indicators are a worry and could be a safety hazard if you get flustered, but otherwise this car is great to drive. The Highland doesn't have its own Euro NCAP rating yet, but the original version achieved 5 stars. Like all modern Teslas, it has emergency braking, collision warning and blind spot detection. This is assisted by camera views that pop up when you indicate. All of which are going to obviously lead to much lower insurance premiums, except they're not. This car's still a Class 50 car. There's a dash cam built in. You need to put a flash drive in the USB port in the glove compartment, but then it will record images from all the cameras around the car if you're involved in an accident or if you honk the horn. You can also turn on sentry mode when the car is parked, and the car will make a recording if it detects motion or somebody breaking into your car. Now, another feature they've added with a software update a couple of years ago is the ability to actually view those cameras live with the app remotely. If, for example, you've parked in valet parking, you can keep an eye on where they've put your car. You may have heard a few more bings as I drive along. That's because there appear to be more audible warnings with this car. But you still don't get irritating interventions to try and keep you in lane. Some cars go really too far with that, and that actually makes a distraction rather than a useful warning. There's adaptive and auto steer cruise control, which you can call up with a button on the steering wheel. This will sense the road markings and take care of cornering for you. You do need to keep your hands on the wheel and give it a little jiggle every so often to let the car know that you're still awake. But otherwise, this is one of the most relaxing cruise controls around. The wheel on the right hand side of the steering wheel, you can dial it up and down to change the current speed, and also jiggle it left and right to select how far you want to be from the car in front. You can also pay £3,400 more for enhanced autopilot, or £6,800 more for the full self-driving, which is almost entirely pointless in the UK at the moment. Enhanced autopilot enables navigate on autopilot and automatic lane changing. But the Highland currently doesn't support auto park, summon or smart summon. That's because they haven't worked out how to do those things without the ultrasonics that this car doesn't have. Full self-driving only offers traffic light and stop sign control. The autonomous driving features of Full SD that are available in California are still in the distant future for drivers in the UK. For Highland, even enhanced autopilot doesn't seem worth it. Just before the Highland was introduced, Tesla dropped the price of the entry-level Model 3, and that's now a tenner under £40,000. However, the long range is much more expensive at a tenner under £50,000. That's not exactly Mondeo money in either case, but bear in mind that the BMW i4 starts at 50k, and that's for the eDrive 35. And that car is about as fast as a Model 3 rear-wheel drive, but with much less range. The entry-level Polestar 2 has similar range and performance, but is £5,000 more than the entry-level Model 3. The Hyundai Ioniq 6 is also a lot more expensive than the basic Model 3 rear-wheel drive. In other words, the Tesla Model 3 Highland isn't exactly cheap compared to combustion engine cars, but amongst EVs it's very competitively priced. The basic warranty is 4 years or 50,000 miles, but you can pay to extend it for another 4 years, and that usually costs somewhere between £2,500 and £3,000. And if you then sell the car, the warranty transfers to the new owner as well. Either way, the battery warranty is 8 years for 120,000 miles and 70% capacity. And as ever, Tesla has a really brilliant reversing camera. You can see it's very high resolution and very large image on the screen. So that makes up for the fact you can barely see anything out of the rear view mirror of this car. So let's answer the question we posed at the beginning of this video. Is the Highland refresh enough to make the Model 3 relevant again? If you can live with those weird indicator buttons, the answer is a resounding yes. The range, performance and driving dynamics are all excellent. I still wish this car was a hatchback and not just a four-door. There's also some questions to be answered about the lack of other sensors and the reliance on cameras and how that's removed some of the advanced features for the time being. But overall, this is an amazingly competent electric vehicle for the money. The Model 3 is back. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel.